What if I told you the fall of the Roman Empire, the collapse of 17th century Spain, the implosion of the Ottoman Empire, and the French Revolution were all caused by the exact same predictable mistake? It wasn't a single war, a foolish king, or a sudden disaster. It was a hidden financial pattern, a three-stage debt cycle that has repeated itself with terrifying accuracy throughout history, ending superpowers one by one. And the most chilling part, that same pattern is happening again, right now, on a global scale. This isn't a conspiracy theory or a wild forecast. It's a warning written in the ruins of history, a blueprint for collapse that is being followed, step by step, in 2025. Once you see this pattern, you will never be able to unsee it in the world around you. To understand our future, we have to travel back 2,000 years. Rome was the undisputed master of the world. Its legions were invincible. Its aqueducts were marvels of engineering. Its laws were the foundation of Western civilization. But empires, no matter how glorious, are impossibly expensive. This is stage one of the cycle. Massive ambition, massive bills. Rome had a colossal military spread across 3 continents, and those soldiers demanded payment. They built thousands of miles of roads, monumental arenas, and sprawling cities. At home, the government kept the peace through the famous policy of bread and circuses, heavily subsidized grain, and elaborate public games. These weren't luxuries. They were essential promises made to the people. But the gold and silver flowing into the treasury from conquered lands eventually began to slow, while the expenses only grew. The empire's financial promises became larger than its wallet. They were trapped in a cycle of their own making. This is when Emperor Nero, in the 1st century AD, made a fateful decision. He initiated a process that would become the empire's undoing, the financial poison that would rot it from within. This is stage 2, the invisible tax. Officially, it was called currency debasement. Nero ordered the imperial mints to secretly melt down the pure silver coins. The denarius mixed the silver with cheaper base metals, like copper, and then remint more coins from the same amount of precious metal. In an instant, the government had more money to spend. It seemed like the perfect solutio magic trick to fund an empire. And it worked, for a while. Subsequent emperors took the idea and ran with it. Why conquer new lands for silver when you can just create more coins? By the 3rd century AD, the Roman silver coin contained less than 5% silver. Some were just bronze coins with a thin silver wash. But people are not stupid. Shopkeepers, merchants, and soldiers quickly realized the coins they were being paid with were worthless junk. They began demanding more and more of them for the same goods. This was inflation, ancient Roman style. The debasement of money triggered the final, catastrophic phase. Stage 3, the implosion. Faith, the bedrock of any monetary system, completely collapsed. To buy a loaf of bread, you might need a whole bag of worthless coins. Commerce ground to a halt. Why sell your grain for money? That would be worthless tomorrow. Soldiers, whose pay was now a meaningless pile of metal, became disloyal, leading to constant civil wars. The economy disintegrated, trade routes broke down, and the once mighty Roman Empire, already weakened by political strife and external threats, crumbled from its rotten financial core. Massive spending, currency debasement, societal collapse. Remember that cycle? It is the key. Now, let's jump forward 1,500 years to 17th century Spain. After Columbus, Spain became the world's first truly global superpower. Mountains of silver and gold poured in from the mines of the New World. This was stage 1 on an unprecedented scale. Spanish ambition was limitless. They funded the most powerful armies in Europe, fighting costly wars in the Netherlands, against France, and with the Ottoman Empire. They were convinced the river of silver would flow forever, but it didn't. The wars proved to be even more expensive than all the treasure they could extract from the Americas. Spain was spending far more than it was taking in, so they turned to the 17th century version of stage 2, massive, unsustainable debt. Instead of just debasing their own coins, they borrowed colossal sums of money from Genoese and German bankers, pledging future silver shipments as collateral. But the wars continued, and the costs mounted. Spain defaulted on its loans. Not once, not twice, but at least 6 times. A sovereign default is a nation telling its creditors, "We are not paying you back." Each time they did this, their credibility was shattered. This was their implosion. Stage 3, the international credit markets. The engine of global commerce lost all faith in Spain. No one would lend them money. Their armies went unpaid and mutinied. The seemingly invincible Spanish Empire went bankrupt. Its military power evaporated, its economy stagnated for a century, and it faded into a second-rate nation. The pattern of ambition, debt, and collapse struck again. We see the same tragic story play out across history. The Ottoman Empire in the 19th century. Stage 1, a sprawling, expensive empire trying to modernize and compete with a rapidly industrializing Europe. Stage 2. They took on enormous loans from foreign banks and debased their currency to pay the bills. Stage 3. They fell into a debt trap, leading to bankruptcy, loss of territory, and a slow, painful decline, earning the nickname the Sick Man of Europe. Or consider Bourbon France in the 1700s. Stage 1. The incredible opulence of the monarchy, with kings spending a fortune on palaces like Versailles, while also funding expensive wars, including the American Revolution. Stage 2. France's tax system was broken and inefficient. The nobility and clergy paid almost nothing, leaving the burden on the common people. The country spiraled into catastrophic debt. Stage 3. The economic desperation of the people, combined with food shortages, boiled over into the French Revolution. The entire social order imploded. The monarchy was overthrown, and the king literally lost his head. The pattern is a death sentence for empires. So why does this ancient history lesson matter in 2025? Because the United States and the broader developed world are repeating the exact same 3 stages, but on a scale so vast it would have been unimaginable to a Roman emperor. We have simply found more technologically sophisticated ways to make the same mistakes. Let's analyze our modern stage 1. Massive ambition, massive bills. For the last 50 years, but accelerating dramatically in the 21st century, the world's leading nations have made promises that are mathematically impossible to keep. Think of the multi-trillion-dollar defense budgets required to police the globe. Think of the social contract, promises of Social Security, Medicare, and public pensions that have unfunded liabilities in the tens, or even hundreds, of trillions of dollars. Then, layer on the emergency spending, the multi-trillion-dollar bank bailouts after the 2008 financial crisis, and then the unprecedented global stimulus packages in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, where trillions of dollars were created and distributed in a matter of months. All of this was funded with debt. The total global debt, government, corporate, and household has now skyrocketed past $315 trillion. It is a number so large, it has no historical parallel. The bills for our collective ambition have arrived, and they are staggering. This brings us directly to our modern version of Stage 2, the invisible tax. Obviously, governments can't raise income taxes to 90% to pay for all this. There would be a revolt. So they turn to the modern, sanitized version of melting down silver coins. It's called monetizing the debt, or more popularly, quantitative easing. Here's how this magic trick works. The Treasury needs to borrow money, so it issues bonds. In a normal world, private investors would buy these bonds. But when the borrowing is this extreme, there aren't enough private buyers. So, the central bank, like the Federal Reserve in the US, steps in. It creates new money, digitally, out of thin air. It then uses this brand new money to buy the government bonds from the big banks. The government gets its cash, the bills get paid, and the national debt gets bigger. For over a decade, this seemed like a miracle, a free lunch. We could fund everything, and proponents argued it didn't cause the kind of inflation you see at the grocery store. But it did cause inflation. It caused massive asset price inflation. The stock market soared to record highs. Real estate prices went into orbit. The wealthy, who own these assets, became fabulously richer. But the invisible tax was still being levied. The value, the purchasing power, of every single dollar in your savings account was being quietly and systematically diluted. The massive inflation we have all felt in recent years, at the gas pump and the supermarket, was the inevitable endgame of this policy. The chicken's coming home to roost. It is the government secretly taxing your savings to pay for its past promises. And that brings us today to the terrifying precipice of Stage 3, the implosion. All currency, whether it's a Roman denarius, a Spanish piece of 8, or a US dollar, has no intrinsic value. Its value comes from one thing and one thing only: faith. The collective belief that it will be worth something tomorrow. For over 70 years, the world has operated on faith in the US dollar as the global reserve currency. Nations hold it, trade in it, and trust it. But for the first time in generations, we are seeing serious cracks in that faith. When the US and its allies weaponized the dollar by freezing Russia's foreign currency reserves, it sent a shockwave through the rest of the world. Nations like China, India, and Brazil began asking a dangerous question. Is it safe to keep all of our national savings in a currency that can be seized overnight? We see the signs of this erosion of faith everywhere. Major oil deals are now being conducted in Chinese yuan. The BRICS nations are openly discussing a new currency backed by commodities to challenge the dollar's dominance. Central banks around the world are buying physical gold at the fastest rate in history. These are not isolated incidents. They are the early tremors of a seismic shift away from the dollar-based system. It's a slow-motion bank run on the world's most important currency. The historical pattern is clear. This is the most dangerous phase. When faith in the dominant currency is lost, the transition is never peaceful. It is chaotic and destructive. It leads to hyperinflation, a flight to hard assets, extreme political instability, and a violent reordering of the global power structure. This isn't an indictment of one political party or one bad leader. This is about a mathematical trap that has ensnared empires for 2 millennia. The Romans, the Spanish, the French, the Ottomans, they all believed they were different. They all believed their situation was unique, that they could manage the debt, that they could outsmart the simple, brutal arithmetic of spending more than you have. None of them ever did. We have been told that our modern understanding of economics, our sophisticated central banks, and our interconnected global system make us immune to this ancient cycle. We've been assured that we can print trillions of dollars with no consequences. A history screams a warning at us from the graves of fallen empires. But Piper must always be paid. By refusing to confront our spending and debt problems honestly through taxation or budget cuts, we have chosen, by default, to pay the price through the slow, agonizing debasement of our money. The final bill is now coming due. 2025 is not just another year. It is the focal point where decades of these decisions are set to collide. The consequences will not be a gentle correction. They could be just as severe and just as society-altering as they were for every other great power that walked this path before us. The pattern is unbroken. The question is, can we be the first to break it before it breaks us?